Welcome to another cosplay making prop. Today we're going to be making Nanami's sword, and this is a beginner-friendly tutorial on how you can make cosplay props. This thing is made out of pretty much all cardboard minus an old cut-up t-shirt and some paint. For any cosplay prop that you're going to be making, you need to have a sketch. This sketch is going to be your blueprint, and you're going to be using this a couple of times to go and trace the pattern. So you want to make sure it's perfect, you want to make sure it's good, and you want to make sure it is the dimensions that you need for this. There's going to be a screenshot right now of how this entire thing looks. So take a screenshot of this, take a picture of it, whatever you're going to do. These are the full dimensions of how big this blade ended up being. Now comes the fun part of actually cutting this out. So I have my paper taped together, I have this sketched out, and to transfer it, I'm going to be using an oil pastel. Oil pastels, chalk pastels work great for transferring this, and it just honestly makes things so much easier because, not for nothing, I don't want to go and print this out. It's an easy way to go and transfer the entirety of whatever you're going to be making onto a piece of cardboard or whatever you're going to cut it out with. I'm using a very, very generous amount of this as well too, just kind of scribbling on the back there, following the lines, and then flipping it over. I taped it down to the cardboard as well too, just so it didn't move. Then I'm going around all of the different lines that I had put down and tracing it with a pencil. You can also use a piece of metal to press this down, and we'll be transferring this 3 times onto a piece of cardboard. 2 times onto this thinner piece of cardboard, which you can see the lines are going the direction that I don't necessarily want them to go, just because having the lines this way makes this weaker and makes it so it's going to bend. I have this really solid piece of cardboard, only issue is it's just not big enough for this, so I had to split it at an equal point, where then I traced it again and cut it out. That's going to be the stable center of this, and the lines are going to be going up straight, rather than across like it is here for where I'm cutting. Now we're just going to cut everything out from the cardboard. I am using just one of these X-Acto blades, going nice and slow, and at this point you do want to go nice and slow because if you accidentally slip, then you're going to have to go and cut more pieces. So I have 2 cut out from here. Then I cut out the thicker piece, which you can see the lines were going the opposite direction in comparison to the other one, and that's going to be the stable center piece of this. So after I had everything cut out from here, and this part took probably honestly the most time to go and make and cut out, then I'm using some Elmer's glue to glue everything together. So I'm taking one of the weaker pieces, putting it onto the bottom, using a generous amount of glue but not oversaturating it, and then lining up the pieces. I put that large piece there, then I put the smaller handle piece at the bottom, and you could see there was a little separation that was there. Then I painted again with more of the Elmer's glue. And after that was saturated, then I put the other piece on top. I pressed everything down, let it sit for about 20 minutes. Then I was good to move on to the next part. Now I had some of the cardboard peel off of the back. It ends up happening. A little bit of the paper got kind of funky. So I used some of this packing material, which you can also use a paper shopping bag to go and do so. Cut a few pieces just to go and fill in some of those different areas, some of the bumps, some of the lumps on there. And I glued down a couple of layers just to get a nice even surface. So when I painted it, it didn't have a lot of that cardboard texture, and it felt a lot nicer to go and hold it and have it in my hand. After that was glued down, which I made sure to wait about 10 minutes or so just so it dried. I cleaned up the edges while I was waiting. Sometimes that happens. Of course, I'm cutting everything by hand, so there's going to be little pieces that are off to the side that do have to be reshaped or cut off or anything like that. So after the edges were cleaned up, I flipped it over onto the other side, glued down one additional piece there. Then as that dried, I put some glue on the edges, and I went around the edges with more of a paper bag. And this is going to clean up the edges, make a nice even layer around, so you're not going to have some edge of the cardboard that's going to cut your hand when you're holding this as a prop. And it's just going to make this look so much cleaner. And then you won't even be able to tell that the prop is made out of cardboard. There's another tutorial that I did as well too on how to make Toji's blade. I did the same exact technique around the edges, cleaned it up with some paper, and really honestly, this is just such a great technique to go and use to clean up your props. It makes a nice line and it looks absolutely great. And sometimes you can't even tell that the prop is real or not. Now, after I had that glued down, I did wait a couple of minutes, make sure it was pressed in place, went around the edges with a pair of scissors, and then cleaned up all of the paper there. You can get a very good edge on this by just pretty much sliding it across the piece of material there. Since the cardboard's nice and flat, it's going to be pretty easy and quick to go and clean this up. Now, most of the blade is at least covered minus the handle area, so I didn't really fully and totally care or mind too much. Then, as everything dried and I had it off to the side, I cut up an old cotton t-shirt. Cotton actually is pretty stretchy, so from what I remember, I needed 4 strips of a large cotton t-shirt. Now I'm painting the cardboard, and from what I remember, it took about 35 minutes for it to fully and totally dry, and I painted the entire thing black on both sides, along with also the edges. I'm using some UHU glue. This stuff is really tacky, works great for all cosplay materials, and is very versatile for pretty much anything that you want to go and do. This stuff dries pretty quickly. As soon as you have some sort of material that touches it, it becomes tacky. So it grips pretty much any fabric or any material extremely well, which makes it great and easy to wrap materials around. Like in this case, an old t-shirt around some cardboard that is painted. Great material, highly suggest using this. As soon as I got about midway up, I decided, you know what, I need a couple of strips at the top or this just might look kind of funky. So I cut a piece of the shirt into 3 different pieces, glued those at the top, and lined them up. Most of this ends up being hidden, which is more than fine, but at least it looks nice and clean at the top when the prop is done and fully wrapped, which when you get to the top, tuck it in, glue it, press it down in place, and make sure all of the material underneath is fully covered. Now this is dry pretty quickly, so almost instantly you are good to start painting on it. I'm just using some black acrylic paint to make some of these spots. The spots that are on Nanami's blade, they can pretty much just be placed randomly. I do suggest going underneath where you have each and every one of these little pieces wrapped. Then wait for everything to dry. And under 2.5 hours, you have this prop done, which is so easy to go and make. And this is a great starting point for anyone that wants to get into cosplay and also prop making. Thank you all so much for watching. There's more tutorials over on my profile. Take it easy. Bye.